is Taqwa? 8 important things about Taqwa. What is Taqwa? The terms super religious and very pious are often used for people who are seen walking on the path which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mapped out for them. The right word that should be used is that these are people who have Taqwa, conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and such people who have Taqwa are known as Muttaqin. Taqwa has been mentioned in the Quran more than 60 times, but the real question arises as to what is Taqwa and how can I gain Taqwa. 1. Meaning of Taqwa. It is next to impossible to yearn to enter Jannah without obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can only be attained when we are conscious of the fact that He is watching and any and everything we do is being written down and recorded. Taqwa has many meanings to it, often translated as fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it has a deeper meaning to it. Linguistically speaking, Taqwa is a shield or protective barrier, as Taqwa is derived from the word waka, which means to protect, safeguard or shield. In other words, as scholars say, it can be defined as placing a barrier between yourself and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's punishment, or protecting yourself from what angers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Taqwa also means to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has permitted and refrain from what has been forbidden. If we put it in more simple words, stay away from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden and embrace what is obligatory and desirable. O you who believe, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He should be feared. Al-Quran chapter 3 verse 102. It is only Taqwa that stops a person from sinning in private. It is narrated by Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu that once the messengers of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked about for what the people are admitted into Jannah or paradise the most, he answered, Taqwa of Allah and good character. And he was asked about that for which people are admitted into the fire the most, and he said, the mouth and the private purse. Tirmidhi. To Taqwa in our daily lives. When people think of Taqwa, they started imagining spending most of their time on a musalla, prayer mat, or doing zikr, remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constantly, or reading the Quran. This definitely must be a part of our daily routine, but that is not it. Taqwa has become difficult to attain in today's day and date because of the accessibility of haram. It is difficult but not impossible. It is a process that takes time and grows with the increase of faith in the heart of a believer until they become convinced that Allah is aware of everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided our affairs by Islam in such a way that anything we do said by the ways of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet becomes an act of ibadah or worship, as simple as going to sleep. All the acts in our daily lives are done according to the Quran, and Sunnah helps us attain Taqwa. The messengers of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, have Taqwa of Allah wherever you are, and follow an evil deed with a good one to wipe it out, and treat the people with good behavior. Tirmidhi. Three. Example of Taqwa. An incredible example that demonstrates Taqwa. When Umar ibn al-Khattab radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu asked Ubay ibn Ka'b radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu about Taqwa, Ubay radiallahu anhu said, "Have you ever taken a thorny path?" Umar radiallahu anhu replied, "Yes, I have." Ubay radiallahu anhu then asked, "So how did you travel along this thorny path?" Umar radiallahu anhu replied, "I rolled up my garment and was cautious as to where I would tread to avoid being pricked by the thorns." So Ubay radiallahu anhu responded and said, "This is taqwa." This further explains that a person is cautious where they tread. The thorn implies not entering into or embracing what Allah has prohibited. Like you would not step onto the thorn knowingly, we are aware of it and will try our best to avoid it. The same goes with forbidden acts. 4. Importance of Taqwa in Islam. Taqwa and Islam come hand in hand. One is not possible without the other. Islam is based on Shahada, Salah, fasting, Zakah and Hajj. Taqwa is having your daily affairs according to Quran and Sunnah. Both are put together to make you a muttaqi, pious person. If you did something wrong and you felt scared, worried or guilty, then that is Taqwa. Never lose those feelings. 5. Types of Taqwa in Islam. Taqwa can be classified into 7 grades or levels. Quran and Sunnah guide us through all these levels. A. Refraining from kufr. Protecting yourself from any act of kufr or shirk is the first level. The messengers of Allah ﷺ said, "Whoever possesses the following 3 qualities will have the sweetness of faith." 1. The one to whom Allah and His messengers become dearer than anything else. 2. Who loves the person and he loves him only for Allah's sake. 3. Who hates to revert to disbelief as he hates to be thrown into the fire. Bukhari. B. Refrain from misguided acts. Misguided acts mean all those acts that have no basis in Islam but have been passed down from our forefathers. Usually those involve a lot of bid'ah innovation as well. Every bid'ah can be a source of misguidance. The messengers of Allah ﷺ said every bid'ah is misguidance and every misguidance is in the hellfire. Nisa'i. In the last era there will be people who will be liars like Dajjal and will tell you such narrations which neither you nor your forefathers may have heard. So keep away from them lest they misguide you, lest they make you indulge in mischief. Muslim. C. Refrain from major sins. We often hear about the importance of staying away from major sins. What are major sins? Any sin that carries a specific legal punishment like adultery, any sin that has been accompanied by a stern warning or explicitly stated by Quran and as haram. If you avoid the major sin which you are forbidden, we will remove from you your lesser sins and admit you into a noble entrance to paradise. Al-Quran chapter 4 verse 31. Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu narrated that I have heard the messengers of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "What I have forbidden you stay away from. What I have ordered you to do as much of it as you can. Verily the people before you were destroyed only because of their excessive questioning and their disagreement with their prophets." Bukhari. This hadith leaves no doubt that we have to stay away from anything that is forbidden and avoid asking useless questions or trying to find any logic behind anything. These levels need to be achieved if we want to increase our taqwa. The refraining from minor sins. There is no way to compile a list of all minor sins. Minor sin is an act of disobedience for which no specific punishment has been allotted, and this is also something people take very lightly. Little do they know that the piling up of minor sins can lead to our downfall. What harm will come if I just listen to one song? What harm will come if I shake the hand of a non-mahram woman or man just once? This just once is the gateway to more sins. Every time you commit a sin thinking just once, they will keep piling up. The messengers of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, beware of minor sins, for they will pile up until they destroy a person. Ahmad. Scholars say that minor sins are accompanied by shamelessness, and it increases every time you commit a minor sin. It will reach a point where you will feel no guilt at all, and you will term it as fun or enjoyment for yourself. There is a risk of them being counted as major sins if they persist. No minor sin is minor if you persist, and no major sin is major if you seek repentance. For believers, sins are a huge burden. Ibn Masud radhiyallahu anhu said, the believer regards his sins as if he were sitting beneath a mountain which he fears may fall on him, whereas the sinner regards his sin as if a fly lands on his nose and he swipes it away. Bukhari. The messengers of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when a believer sins, a black dot appears on his heart. Ibn Majah. Refraining from things that are doubtful. Islam has clearly defined halal permissible and haram forbidden, but there are some matters in between that are doubtful that people are unaware of. There is a fine line between doubtful and haram which can be easily overlooked. So try avoiding the things that are doubtful or ambiguous, which can easily lead you astray. Doubtful means there is a lot of chance that it might displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That should be enough reason for us to stay away from it. And even if the matter in question turns out to be halal and we have kept away from it, we have done so with the intention of taqwa. No harm will come to a person if he avoids something halal. Some scholars say makruh disliked is a step between a slave and haram. A person who commits makruh deeds a lot will commit harams. Mubah permissible is a step between a slave and makruh. A person who commits mubah deeds a lot will commit makruh. On the authority of Abi Abdullah al-Nu'man ibn Bashir radhiyallahu anhu, who said, I heard the messengers of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, what is lawful is clear and what is unlawful is clear, but between them are certain doubtful things. I give you an example for this. Allah has a preserve, and Allah's preserve is things He has declared unlawful. He who pastures his animals round the preserve will soon fall into it. He who falls into doubtful things will soon be courageous to do that things again. Bukhari. F. Refraining from evil desires of nafs. Do what your heart desires or listen to what your heart says is a concept very much glorified, which usually leads us to do something that is not at all acceptable. Nafs says that we should not let overcome us is mentioned in the Quran, as well as Nafsul Ammara. By its very nature it directs us to wrong action. It is dominated by earthly desires. No one can get rid of its evil without the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a never-ending war between shaitan and nafs. Inna nafsa la'ammaratu bisu'i. Indeed, the nafs that overwhelmingly commands a person to do sin. Al-Quran chapter 12 verse 53. According to Imam Hassan al-Banna, your nafs is your first battlefield. If you are victorious over it, you will find other battlefields easier. Prosperous is he who purifies it, the nafs, and he has failed if he instills it with corruption. Al-Quran chapter 91 verse 9 and 10. Refrain from paying attention to something that takes you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Avoid everything that takes you away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A simple example, if you do decide to seek out faults, let it be yours. A believer is to be humble. Keep an eye on everything you do. The opposite of humility is pride and arrogance. Think well of people. Be forgiving and patient. Try to do acts that bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ تَبَتَّلْ إِلَيْهِ تَبْتِيلًا. Remember the name of your Lord and separating from everyone else. Devote yourself solely to Him. Al-Quran chapter 73 verse 8. 6. How to test your taqwa. We have a thermometer to tell the temperature. A blood pressure apparatus is used to find out your blood pressure. There is no way to gauge your taqwa, let alone pass comments on someone else's life. The messengers of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam pointed to his herd and said, Taqwa is here. Tirmidhi. The only way to test your taqwa is to note your reactions in the following situations. When you are all alone, what do you do? When you are bored, what do you turn towards? When no one is around to appreciate your good deeds, do you still do them? When you are in the company of people who are involved in bad habits, do you join them because you want to fit in? What happens if you get angry, insulted, or frustrated? How do you react? What if you are happy and content with how things are progressing in your life? What comes to mind when you think of yourself? The answers to all these will tell you where you stand and how much work is cut out for you. There is no stopping even if you feel you are on track. Keep striving to do better, and the ultimate goal should be to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only. 7. How do I get taqwa? Since you are born a Muslim or accepted Islam, taqwa is like a default mechanism already built in. We just need to tap into it and learn how to develop it. One day his slave bring him some food, and Abu Bakr al-Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu at that time was extremely hungry. He said Bismillah and began to eat this food, and he started to indulge in the food. His slave was astonished because Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu would usually ask his slave where he would get the food from, but today he didn't ask him. So the slave said, "Why didn't you ask me where I got the food from today?" So Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu responded, "I am sorry, so where did you get your food from?" The slave answered, "In the Jahiliyyah pre-Islam, I did some witchery, and the people liked it, and in return they gave me some food, and you were eating it." When Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu realized that the source of this food came from haram, making the food non-halal, and he did not know before that, he went and vomited out the food he had just eaten, making sure there was no food left in his stomach. The people said, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, you are going to kill yourself. He said, by Allah, there is a little left. If it only comes out with my soul, I do not mind. This is the level of taqwa the companions of the Prophet lived with. It can be difficult to get to that level, but we can always try. Here are some ways to increase taqwa. Make constant dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep your taqwa from fading or diminishing. Repent constantly, especially with sins we repeatedly commit. Try to fight your nafs from repeating the sin, thinking it's okay, I will ask for forgiveness later. Be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for any act of worship you do, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the opportunity and created easy circumstances that you can carry out your ibadah. Read Quran with its meaning to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to tell us. Try to put what you learned into action, even if you have learned something as simple as the dua to enter the bathroom. Implement it in your life. Look up to those who had taqwa like the Sahaba, striving to do better each day. Don't ever consider yourself spiritually higher because you prayed 5 times a day. Slightest of arrogance can become the reason of Allah's displeasure. Fast other than the month of Ramadan. 6 days in the month of Shawwal, 9 days of the month of Dhul Hijjah. The white days 13, 14 and 15 of every lunar month. Mondays and Thursdays are recommended for fasting as well. Always try to place yourself in the company of people who remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and bring you closer to Him. Try to look at the glass half full rather than trying to find faults in someone. Look for what's good. Know your enemy. Shaitan will try his best that you deviate from the right path, but you have to hold on steadfast. Things might get rocky, but the reward is worth it. Abdullah bin Masud radiallahu anhu reported that the messengers of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to say, Allahumma inni as'aluka al-huda wa-taqa wal-afafa wal-ghina. While I ask you for guidance, piety, chastity and self-sufficiency. Muslim. 8. Benefits of taqwa. Imam Malik said the Sunnah is like the Ark of Noah. Whoever got on board was saved, who didn't drowned. Safety comes in different ways. We can gain the following blessing from taqwa. Allah will make this easier for him. This doesn't mean that he will not face any difficulties. It means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him strength to withstand the hard times without losing faith. And whoever fears Allah, He will make for him easy in his matter. Al-Quran chapter 65 verse 4. A way out of difficulties, taqwa will serve as a divine guard against the trials of this world. And whoever fears Allah, He will make for him a way out. Al-Quran chapter 65 verse 2. Allah will provide him from where he least expects, and will provide for him from sources he could never imagine. Al-Quran chapter 65 verse 3. He will give him the ability to distinguish between the right and wrong. O you who believe, if you fear Allah, He will grant you a criterion. Furqan. Al-Quran chapter 8 verse 29. Peace of heart and mind. It is He, Allah, who sent down tranquility into the hearts of the believers. Al-Quran chapter 48 verse 4. Acceptance of our worship. Allah only accepts from the people of Taqwa. Al-Quran chapter 5 verse 27. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will save the muttaqin from hellfire. Then we will save those who feared Allah. Al-Quran chapter 19 verse 72. With time it becomes easier to control your nafs. Conclusion. Like a recipe needs to be followed to the instruction to ensure an excellent output, the same is the case with taqwa. The instructions have been provided, we have to make sure we follow them as said. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy upon every Muslim to achieve taqwa.
To get new episodes, click subscribe button.